Hey guys, this is Ron. So up to this point we've been talking about the components or the different elements that make up the Python language. But we really haven't talked about putting it all together and making a Python script that you can then run. Right? So we spent a lot of time in idle. We spent a lot of time just working on the basics. Now I'd kind of like to bring some of that together. So I'm at the command line here, and again, I'm using Linux. So if you're a Windows user, this is going to be quite different, and some of it won't necessarily apply to you. But in the Linux world, we like to use a thing called the Shebang, and the Shebang is at the very beginning of our program, so that I don't necessarily specify the program that I want to execute my script, like Python, and then pass it my script. If I want to just execute that script, there has to be some mechanism in there to tell your computer that you want to use Python to execute that. So the first thing I'm going to do is do a which Python. And this basically just tells me the path to Python, right? So I'll copy this. And now I'm going to go down to my editor, and I'm going to do a pound exclamation point. And I'm going to paste this in, which it didn't like. So I'll do a user bin Python, right? Now there's other ways of building this. Some people like to use some of their environment variables. It just really, it's up to you. But for me, I'll do it this way because, well, that makes more sense to me. Plus, it's readable. I know exactly where it's going to get it, whatever. Now, let's go back to our prompt here. Let's go all the way back here. And we'll execute Python. And what I want you to see is we'll do a dir, just like we've been doing up to this point. Well, there's this value right here, name. So if I check to see what's in name, right now name is equal to main. Alright? And the reason this is significant is because we called this program right off the bat, right? So we are in main. However, if we were to call this program from, say, another program, this main it wouldn't be equal to main anymore. It would be equal to whatever we had named this program. So we'll see this kind of later in our examples when we start writing code that gets imported into other pieces of code. But for now, just understand that name, because it was called directly, or because this program was called directly, name is equal to main. Alright? So I'll exit out of here. I just wanted you to kind of see that so this whole concept here isn't completely foreign. But we'll come down here, and typically then at the very bottom of your code, you'll have something like this. If underscore name is equal to main, we are going to call the main function, right? And so then up here somewhere, we'll have a definition for main. And so this is going to be the basic control of what our function does, or what our program does. Now up here we might define other functions. So let's say we want, we're going to take input, we'll do something like this, right? So we'll take the in, what are we going to call it? We'll call it something like user input equals raw input. Please enter your name. And we'll close it out just like that. So the user is going to be prompted to enter their name They're going to enter it. We are going to pass their name to a function called send greeting. We'll send our user input up there. So we'll go up here, define a function called send greeting. This is user input, and we don't have to name it the same thing. It does make it simpler, but we don't have to do that. Notice because I'm in my editor, it automatically is indenting for me like we talked about before. And so here I'll do something. I'm going to put a pound here because this is going to be the start of a comment. So we'll say this merely sends a greeting to our user. And we'll do something like this. Print nice to meet you, and we'll include their name. Alright, so not a very advanced program. The only thing it's going to do is ask for their name, and then it's going to greet them, right? So we'll go ahead and save this. Let me see, I'll save it in my projects, in our Python tutorial, and we'll call it greetings.py. Alright. So we have this program called greetings.py, and as long as I didn't make any mistakes in it, it should work for us. So we will go back to, let me minimize that so you don't see it in the background. Alright, so if I do an ls here, I've got my greeting.py. Now I've got two options for running it. I can do a Python and then greetings.py. Oh, I have an error. Can't open file greetings.py. Or I've got greeting.py. My bad. Alright, so we have invalid syntax on def main. So we made a mistake in our program. Let's see what we did. What we did is we forgot our bracket here. So what happened was, as Python was checking over the program, it was expecting to see this bracket here that would close off this print statement, and instead what it found was this def command, because obviously there's nothing in between here, and so it freaked out. A freak out. All right, enough of that. So let's try it again. Python greeting.py. So please enter your name, Ron. Nice to meet you, Ron. And it ends the program, right? So pretty simplistic, but what was that whole shebang thing for? If we ended up putting here, but we had to execute the Python command here, well then what was the point of that? Well, what we can do, I'll do a long listing. What we want is to make this an executable, right? And so in the Python world, these are our permissions. So it has read and write privileges, basically. It doesn't have execute. So what we can do, chmod plus x, so we're going to give it execute privileges, and we'll do greeting.py. Now when I do a long listing, changed colors, I get a little asterisk, and now everybody can pretty much execute it. So now if I do a /greeting, now I don't have to tell it Python, because the shebang is basically instructing it, oh, you're supposed to use Python to run me. And so it runs Python. And so we put our Ron in there, and nice to meet you, Ron. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I hope you kind of get the general flow of things. So the first thing that happens in this program, because these are defined functions, it keeps going down to the point where it can actually run something. And what it finds is this if statement. And this if statement says, hey, if your name is main, then I want you to execute the main function. So it comes up here to the main function, right? And it gets our user input, and it sends that user input up to the send greeting function. And that send greeting function, again, takes that name and prints it out, right? So very simple. There's no return here. There's no return here. So as soon as this is done executing, this is done printing, the program closes, right? Because there's nothing left to do. All right, so again, I hope you learned something there. That's the basic general flow of how we'll write our programs from here on out. And then we'll use that if or that double underscore name double underscore. We'll use that a couple times because maybe we want to write a piece of a module, or we want to write a little piece of code that isn't intended to stand on its own. It's intended to be used in someone else's code. And so we'll use that to check, hey, is your name main? And if it is, hey, give them some prompt that says, hey, you're not supposed to run me in this manner. So not everybody does those sorts of things. I tend to like to do that. That way I know that, hey, you know, if I send somebody my code, they know that they're not supposed to run it on its own. They're supposed to include it with their program and then run it from inside their program. All right, so again, I hope you learned something. Feel free to play around with your own examples. Again, what we did here was ultra simple, just doing some basic input and output. But it should have been enough to kind of demonstrate or hit home those points for you. Thanks for watching.